Hello, I hope everybody enjoyed the week off, and we're back to it here at Module 8 with a fun one. This is User-Centered Design and Social Networking. This is also your first two-week module, but as you'll see when you read the information, you do have an assignment due 1 week from today. So then you may be asking, well, why is this a two-week module if we have an assignment due in 1 week? And that's because there's a handful of readings here dealing with social networking that really couldn't split up and say, okay, you read these 5 articles in week 1 and then these 4 articles in week 2. So what I've done is made it a 2-week module overall and given you a smaller assignment to complete in the first week so you can also focus on completing the readings, and then you have a larger assignment due in the second week of the module. And I think what you'll find when you go through it and you prepare for the first assignment is that that first assignment will really provide you a good basis and background and information that will then allow you to build up and build towards the second assignment. So you have 2 weeks overall to complete this work, but I try to do it in a way that gives you some time the first week to get through the readings. Now, in talking about the readings, I've said this at the beginning of the semester, but it's certainly worth repeating for this module. There's a number of readings that I chose that I think are, as you'll see, really helpful and give you some interesting perspective on designing for social networking sites. But this is a space that you all know better than I, moves very quickly. It changes rapidly. So to give you up-to-the-minute articles would be nearly impossible. So I want you to read these articles, obviously distill the information that they're presenting, include the information in your assignments, which we'll talk about in a moment. But this is a module where you really need to add your own experience, your own history with social networking, and your own perspectives. I think we probably all have opinions on what works best on Facebook and what doesn't work so much on Facebook. Every time there's a redesign of Facebook out, obviously this has been in the news recently, every time Facebook puts out a new redesign, there is, millions and millions of tweets and posts on other social networking sites, for and against the new design. Anytime Instagram makes a change, of course, everyone is talking about how that impacts your use of Instagram. So when we think about user-centered design and social networking, this module, perhaps more than any other this semester, is one where you really need to draw on your personal use of social networking sites, your personal perspectives and personal opinions on what makes for effective design. So include your own thoughts in your assignments this week as evidence and as fact, so you can really draw on again your own expertise in addition to the readings. Now, in no way am I suggesting you should ignore the readings. As we'll talk about in a moment here with the first assignment, citing the readings will be an important part of what you do here. But just a reminder, and I know it sounds like I'm belaboring the point, but I really want to make sure everyone understands this. Bring in your own perspectives and your own thoughts this week. So the first assignment, now I'm going to pull up an example here of the first assignment on the screen, and as you'll notice, I also give you a link to download this PDF so that you can have it on your local desktop or a computer so you can look at it and see what I'm expecting, because this is one where format is going to play an important role. And as you can see when I pull it up here, when I talk about format, I would like your version of this assignment to have all of the same components here. What I'm asking you to do is basically create 3 new guidelines for social networking. So the guidelines that you create are entirely up to you, but as I said, I want your guidelines to have the same components. So when we think about what that means, I'd like you to judge your guideline on 2 metrics here: relative importance as well as strength of evidence. You need a title and a guideline, a comment that explains in a little bit more detail why you feel this is an important guideline and what it will provide people who are reading this, and then of course list your sources. Now the sources should come from the required readings this week, and that's also how you will determine strength of evidence. Strength of evidence should be based on how many of the readings talked about this or indicated that this were an important guideline. But again, this is a module where if you have other readings, I'm sure many of you, read whether it's Mashable or Silicon Alley Insider every day. If there's an article one day this week that talks about the guideline that you're proposing and you feel that it would actually work well as a citation here, please include that. And just mention it to me in email with a link and say, hey, you might notice in my assignment I cited an article from Mashable. Anyway, here's the link if you'd like to see it. So draw in, again, outside readings and, again, your own perspectives. And of course, it should have screenshots to show exactly what we're talking about. So here in this example, I pulled ResearchGate, which is a social networking site that you can find on the link I provided, and right at the top of the page, it does exactly what this guideline is asking you to do. It is explaining to the targeted user why they need to use this site over Facebook. And I think the example here is that in Facebook, you're one of whatever their user base is now in the billions, whatever it is, whereas on ResearchGate, you will be speaking to a much smaller audience, obviously, but it's a concentrated audience of scientists who really want to hear from you and connect with you for a very specific reason. So again, download the template that I provide and follow it from a format perspective, and make sure you include all of these components. Now, when we look at the second assignment, the output of this second assignment is a recommendation in the form of a memo that you would submit to your boss, is how you should look at it. And for me, I think that should give you enough guideline as to what I'm expecting here. I'm expecting well written, obviously, well thought out arguments, if you will, cited with evidence, with screenshots as well, because I think that will be important, especially when you're thinking about a memo that you submit to someone. You want them to take away the information as quickly as possible so that they want to learn more. And if you can have visual evidence to explain why the navigation may need to change, or why icons need to be larger or smaller or a different color, presenting the visual evidence of what that looks like now and how that might be deficient is the most effective tool you can include in a report like this. So again, let it be professional. Your viewpoint should be that it's being submitted to your boss. And I think this is implied and goes without saying, whenever you're submitting something in electronic format to your boss, you should assume that that can very easily be forwarded to her boss or her colleagues. So in many ways, you're writing for an audience far beyond that you might even be expecting. So you always want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward, so to speak. On length here, let's not go over 4 pages, and that should include screen grabs. I know a lot of times when we talk about length, people want to know, how long does it have to be? Meaning, what's the minimum amount of pages it should be? Which is a great question to ask. But equally as important is thinking about the maximum number of pages, because as I'm sure many of you know, there is a such thing as too long. I don't obviously know every individual that you all work for, but if it's someone who just doesn't have the time or the attention span to want to read a 9-page document, you might as well have not submitted it at all, because it can be too long and lose their attention. So for this one, I think the 3 or 4 page target with screenshots is a good one for you to aim for. Now, the final piece of required viewing here is, as I said, there's a lot of readings, and now we have one required viewing clip, which is only a couple of minutes, and so will take you a couple of minutes, obviously, is a clip from the movie The Social Network, which I'm going to assume most, if not all of you have seen, considering you are in an interactive program. And I think this is an important clip just to go back and look at independently and with some of these thoughts in mind. I always think that social networking sites, work best when they allow you to interact or they resemble a real-world interaction that you can have. So, just going back to that ResearchGate example, what's so great about that is if you're a professional scientist, you go to conferences and you're on email lists with other scientists. So what ResearchGate is doing is giving you a virtual space, a digital community, if you will, to extend those physical relationships. So it resembles, in many ways, a real-world interaction. But we should also look at areas where social networking and digital sites can improve upon real-world interactions, and that's what I like so much about this clip. I don't want to give it away, because if I explain it to you, then you have no reason to see it, but it's something that the Mark Zuckerberg character thinks of one day, where he realizes there is one piece of information that most, if not all, of his targeted users, who at the time were only college kids, wanted to know about everybody they met. And he thought, well, first of all, I have to include a way for sharing that information. But by doing this on the computer, it could actually be more effective, because you sort of bypassed the awkwardness that sometimes comes with asking another person this piece of information. So he provided his users a very safe and conservative way to find out an important piece of information. And in no way am I suggesting that this one idea propelled Facebook to the incredible success that it's at now. But for those of you who saw the movie, you know that this part of the movie, and once he sort of integrates this idea into the website, it almost propels them to the next phase of their growth, and it really accelerates them to the next level, if you will. So definitely check out the clip. As I said, I'm sure you've all seen it, but look at it now by itself and with this context. I think it will be helpful as you approach your assignments this week, especially the first one, when we think about how are we, and the second one, obviously, how are we improving social networking experiences online. So that is it for this week. Any questions, send me an email, and I'll be happy to answer them. Take care, everyone.